All right, thanks for joining. This is the architecture review meeting for session one, and today is April 24th, 2024. And Michael has brought us the item for today. Michael, I'll kick it to you if you want to verbalize it.
Yeah, sure thing. Not sure the amount of discussion that's going to be in here, but also wanted to just bring attention to this effort. You might have heard about it through the lines, but we're proposing to move purchase flows from GitLab.com to CustomersDot. And this is mainly to achieve SOX compliance. But there might be other topics in here that would be interesting to dive into. For example, we're talking about some instrumentation efforts in this particular area, both to inform us and possibly even drive decisions. But also there's some discussion about technical debt pay down versus impact on engineering efficiency. Probably also impact on sales versus user experience. So a bunch of topics to dive into. Just wanted to bring this effort to your attention, and I don't have like a particular topic that I wanted to discuss around this, but I'm sure there are feelings and opinions.
Yeah, this one is interesting. I think I heard about it a little later. At one point we were going to move everything to GitLab, and now we're moving everything back. So it was a little surprising. That was my initial thought.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the Epic, and there is a mention that we need to stop all transactions from happening by the end of July. Don't have too much time.
Yeah, so that's why there are some interesting discussions here, because there's some tight deadlines specifically around the compliance. And yeah, that will definitely make sure, like, keep us on our toes in terms of prioritization.
Thanks for laying all of this out, Michael. Is there any additional color I can add from the compliance side on this? I think it's exactly what you said, that we need to stop transactions from happening on .com, and just have those happen in CustomersDot. The additional color behind that really is that .com isn't controlled by IT general controls, which is what's needed for SOX compliance, whereas CustomersDot is. So when we went through our audit last year, we ran into just issues with that, because if it's not under IT general controls, then you can't sort of, from a compliance point of view, they can't, it basically causes an issue, because you can't guarantee that all of those transactions followed a specific process, specifically around code approvals and who has access to what. So that's a little bit of the backstory.
I know I raised this to you in the past, Jerome. I guess my concern is that I don't think we will be able to remove all of the paths. At least that's my understanding. For example, we have some API calls that we need. I mean, I don't see how GitLab.com SaaS would work without involvement, like adding users, or I don't know, anything that happens for SaaS there may need to be communicated between GitLab.com and CustomersDot. We also have tables there, subscriptions. We have a bunch of things there. A lot of them, at least back in the day, technically made sense to keep them in there, because it's some sort of the source of truth for some of those things. So I think it depends what we ask here. Maybe it's possible to move all of the UIs, all of the user interface. I'm not even totally sure. I think Vitaly also mentioned there the credit card validations, but there could be some that might be tricky as well. But ignoring UI, I don't think we can. I don't think we can do it. I don't see any easy way to move all of the APIs to just CustomersDot. There must be some communication there. It's tricky.
Yeah, so the two key parts where we actually have SOX controls are first around the acceptance of customer terms. So whenever you make a purchase, you have to check that checkbox that says I accept GitLab's terms. And when we check that checkbox, we basically need to ensure that that is happening in a SOX compliant environment. So that basically is all of the purchasing UI. And then the second key part is the delivery of the license. So whenever we've bought something and we need to provision it, the act of sort of delivering that license is a revenue recognition event. So basically, because we've delivered it, it means we've fulfilled our obligation, which means we can now actually recognize the revenue on our books. So when it comes to migration of purchase flows, the acceptance of terms piece, I think, is pretty straightforward. That includes moving storage, CI, any purchasing of plans, moving all of, basically moving all of those flows over to CustomersDot. The other part about delivery of license, I don't think is quite clear yet. I think that we've been able to clear most of this on the provision side through the provision tracking system. But I think there's still some ends to tie up there in terms of just delivery of SaaS.
Yeah,
So
exactly. I was going to raise SaaS there, because SaaS provisioning occurs in GitLab.com. And I think we can remove it. I don't think SaaS came up frequent enough in our SOX meetings, at least in the ones that I've been attending. I don't know if they're aware how a SaaS system works or GitLab.com. I think they're definitely aware of how we provision self-managed instances. So I think SaaS may come up, and that may be a problem because provisioning we can definitely check. I don't think we track this. Do we track that in the provisioning system? I don't know. Maybe we track it by email. I don't know how we do SaaS, but I think for revenue recognition, if we go into the detail, it should be that the SaaS account is active, right? So they have the things are provisioned there. Because what are we doing in CustomersDot? I mean, we can send an email, we can send the API call to GitLab.com, but that may fail, right? So if GitLab.com is not provisioned, my understanding is that SaaS would you couldn't accept that as revenue recognition, because that customer will log in and it wouldn't have the whatever it needs to be provisioned. They wouldn't have Ultimate, they wouldn't have that account. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's my biggest fear there with SaaS.
Yeah, let me I'll ping the provision channel and to see if anyone can clarify that. Unless we have any provision team members on the call that know off the top of their head. Bishwa, do you know?
Well, I think like what James said, like provisioning, unless the sheets or unless the CI minutes gets provisioned on the GitLab side, they will not be able to use it for sure. Also, I mean, if we want to go further as a the refactoring, we could also think about making CustomerDot as a single source, and like truth, and then probably GitLab can make like a microservice. GitLab can call CustomerDot whenever a user gets, I don't know, signed in, and then gets back the, gets back the result of like, hey, if this user has an access to this or that. So for example, I don't know, this namespace, first we check in GitLab if a user is is in a correct namespace or is in a correct organization, and then based on that we could ask CustomerDot, hey, this organization has a paid subscription or not, or something like that. Just top of my head, but yeah, I'm pretty sure there are lots of intricacy inside of that, but we could also maybe give a little thought on that area so that CustomerDot becomes a source of truth, and we don't have to have this ping pong, or like have this hey, from CustomerDot to GitLab, and again from GitLab to CustomerDot, and so on and forth.
Jerome, to add, I'm not sure if this is what you're asking exactly, but for each order that we get for a new subscription, an update, or whatever, the provision system, the provision tracking for SaaS specifically has checkpoints that check that the update to the GitLab namespace succeeded, and that the update to the subscription, back to the subscription succeeded, and then it marks the provision as successful. And then you have panels of successful and unsuccessful provisions. And I guess what Sox was concerned was about the ratio of what we have successfully provisioned to be able to recognize that revenue. That is at least what I recall from back a couple of years back.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm looking at a record right now, if it's interesting for y'all. Oops. Yes, I believe this, you're seeing this, right? The provision details. Yeah, so this is for SaaS namespace.
Perfect.
Right, but then I'm also thinking at the same time for self-managed, we might not necessarily get the same ping back and actually tell if it succeeded. So it's actually left hanging when it's delivered by email, if they are not connected to CustomersDot via their instance.
Self-managed, the act of us emailing the license counts as us doing our part. So
good.
We're good.
I was not aware. Cool.
In the future, for storage and CI minutes, I think storage and CI minutes are supposed to just be for 1-year terms. I think as long as we provision them, I'm not sure whether that revenue is recognized every month or whether it's recognized all at once. So when it comes to, you'll hear this in some of our investor calls about the ratable nature of our revenue. And basically what that means is instead, when we sell a license, instead of recognizing all of the revenue up front, we recognize it on a monthly basis as we deliver that revenue or as we deliver that service. So for SaaS, this is really clear because we operate the service, and if the service isn't operational for a month, our customers are going to know that we didn't fulfill our obligation. For self-managed, it's a little bit less clear because we deliver them a license key, and that license key allows them to use the GitLab service for an entire year. But a lot of times those license keys also come with support, and it comes with a promise of upgrades for the entire year. So what we end up doing for the self-managed revenue is we break it down into a portion that we recognize up front, and then we break it down into a portion that we recognize monthly over the year. So when it comes to something like CI minutes or storage, this is where it gets a little bit tricky because currently we sell these CI minutes and storage packs up front, and they last for 1 year. It's a very small portion of revenue, so it hasn't been a big deal for our accounting team. But in the future, if we ever did move to a consumption-based model where we're selling credit packs and we're basing our revenue recognition off of how much is actually used by our customers, then we're going to have to be able to measure that usage and then report that back into our financials, so that we just recognize the portion that's actually been used rather than the entire portion that's bought. It's a little bit of a tangent, but I think it still ties into revenue recognition and SOX compliance and everything else.
Thanks for sharing the checkpoints. I linked the documentation on this. There's actually pretty good documentation on the tracking system, the checkpoints, and the known error causes.
I had a quick question about the just like a little bit more context about the decision to move the flows to CustomersDot. If the reason we're doing this is because of SOX controls and not having those on GitLab.com, I'm assuming that there was at least a quick discussion of having those controls in place for GitLab.com. I'm curious if that was, if that's true, if that conversation happened, and maybe it was chosen not to go that route because of like a cost thing, or maybe an inconvenience for having those controls in place there. Because it is curious that we at one point decided to move these flows to GitLab.com for, like, I think for a customer perspective, it's probably a better flow to have those flows there and not leave and go to another application. And now we're switching it for something that seems like it's a back-end decision. But yeah, I was just curious about that.
Yeah, I can shed some light on that. I think I was around when we originally made the decision to try to move all of these things into .com. And the idea behind that was really funnel optimization. So like you mentioned, if a customer is already on .com, it just makes it a lot easier for them to purchase on .com. And if they have to jump over to another website, that's less optimal for your funnel, because you might have some churn in the checkout flow at that point. So the idea was to move everything into .com. But I think what had happened is over time, we started supporting other types of customers, like our self-managed customers or our dedicated customers, or this idea to offer other services to SaaS customers like CI minutes and compute and everything. Over time, it started to make sense that, you know what, all of our customers don't actually have a .com account. So maybe we should actually keep all of the billing things in one central place. And that's where we ended up going with the SSO solution instead, where we would try to have all of our customers have a .com account, but we would set up this extra portal where it will hold and sort of be a source of truth for everything that customers bought. So that's sort of the story as to why there was some shifting there. When it comes to, well, couldn't we just bring GitLab.com under SOX controls? We've had that discussion a bunch of times, but the concern is around the velocity of our core product development. Anytime you put an application under SOX controls, it means that the whole application needs to meet a certain level of audit. And in this case, we do have a lot of controls already in .com. For instance, we make sure that we have approvals, and we make sure that whoever's authoring something isn't the same as the person that's actually doing the merging. And we've got audit logs and everything else in place. But to actually make .com more of a financial transaction type of system, like what CustomersDot is, we thought that the onus was just too high, or the bar was too high, because this not only brings in the application itself and the development of that application, but the infrastructure that all sits on as well. And that means that we need to track all of the changes to .com infrastructure. And that means we need to track all of the access requests to .com infrastructure in a specific way that meets audit standards. So we had explored that route, but it seemed way too complicated, and it seemed like it would have slowed us down quite a bit to make .com a financial system when really we don't need that to be. So the idea instead is just carve it out and put all SOX compliance requirements onto CustomersDot and just keep it isolated there. Does that help answer your question, Tyler?
Definitely. Yeah, that helps a lot. Appreciate it.
Yeah. I know SOX compliance has been something that's been a bit of a pain over the past year and a half. We're currently hiring a technical program manager to lead our compliance efforts, where this is going to be someone that sits right alongside of the fulfillment team and works with our team to help us understand all of these requirements, and helps us document all of these things so that we're in a much stronger position for audits. So currently hiring for that position, and hope to have someone in for it soon, so that we can have a lot more structure around our SOX compliance program.
Michael, any other thoughts on this topic?
No, I think this is a good discussion. We'll definitely have to keep, you know, the conversation going. I think there's multiple efforts on, you know, both doing a kickoff on the project and diving into details. But yeah, there's a lot to dive into here. But thanks for sharing your thoughts.
Cool. And thanks for bringing it for a discussion. Yeah, if there's nothing else from anybody, we'll adjourn here and we'll pick it up next week. All right. Take care. Bye.